Welcome to Miles Ahead, the Canadian Points Podcast, brought to you by FrugalFlyer.ca, where we talk about all things miles and points, a hobby that allows us to travel all over the world in style and on a budget. This episode, we will cover all the recent points and miles news, along with some questions from you, our loyal listeners. As per usual, I'm joined by my regular co-hosts, Josh and Jeff.
Happy to be here, Danny.
Yep, another episode. Let's do it.
And we've got some pretty darn exciting news and some good questions to cover. So let's jump straight into it. Not the most exciting news, but I think there is some sweet spots here from the Scotiabank credit offers that are now brand new as of a couple days before we're recording this. We've got 4 new offers that are recently launched. We've got the Visa Infinite Passport, Scotiabank Passport Visa Infinite, if we're going to be correct for compliance. And then more exciting, I think, is the VIP, but we'll get to that in just a moment. Josh, what is happening with the Scotiabank Passport Visa Infinite offer?
So we kind of always see the first half of the year focusing on this card. They always want to push it. It's a great, mass market consumer offer and card. So we have a new offer that's up to 60,000 scene points on the Passport Visa Infinite card. It is broken out into 3 chunks of points. So the most accessible is 40,000 scene plus points on $2,000 of spend within 3 months. There are 2 additional chunks of points of 10,000 points each. The first one requires a spend of $10,000, which may or may not be worth it depending on your spending capacity. But the second chunk requires $40,000 of spending, which is just, they've had this on the card forever. It's always there. We include it as part of the welcome bonus just for context, but I don't think anybody really considers it part of the welcome bonus because it's outlandish to say the least. So kind of a weird enigma in that. So I kind of view this welcome offer as 40,000 points for 2K spend. If you have the capacity and no other card to put it on, tack an extra 10K. It's been on there for another 10,000, but the 40K as is pretty good. This card does not have first year free, so you are paying a $150 annual fee on that, but it does come with a $150 rebate from Frugal Flyer if you sign up through the FlyerFunds rebate program. It also comes with 6 airport lounge passes and no foreign transaction fees. Really, it is one of the best overall travel credit cards in Canada for someone who might not be wanting to pay a high annual fee or can't maybe meet the income requirements of the super premium cards. You can also add supplementary card holders to the Passport Visa Infinite, and a neat trick with it is that those supplementary card holders also receive the lounge access passes now. Whether that's intended or not, I'll leave that up to you, but that is how it functions. So there's definitely some value to be had there.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting value proposition. Basically, you're having a zero cost out of pocket to get this card because, it does come with that $150 annual fee. With the FlyerFunds program, a perk of applying through our website and supporting the Frugal Flyer team, of course, is that you get that $150 rebate back in the FlyerFunds program. So 40,000 scene points, easily worth $400. They're kind of a fixed value currency and no foreign transaction fees, which is nice. But Jeff, I think the more exciting offer here does require, I don't want to say gaming, but it's more attractive than it originally seems with the Scotiabank Passport Visa Infinite privilege. Walk us through this on why a $599 annual fee is actually a good deal.
Yeah, so you're talking about the Visa Infinite privilege, which is the ultra premium card. So that's a $599 annual fee. So this card is actually, originally when this card came out, it wasn't too exciting, but they seem to have beefed it up a little bit in recent months. So you're still getting the no foreign transaction fees. You're still getting the lounge passes. There's a $250 annual travel credit and $200 in FlyerFunds. Is that like an all-time high? I've never seen $200.
That's pretty damn up there, to say the least. It's very rare to cross into the 200s. So it's a good amount of money, yeah.
Yeah, so that's not bad. So that takes a nice chunk out of your annual fee in the first year, at least. And then the welcome offer is 100,000 scene points. So that breaks down into a couple ways. There's 30,000 scene points after spending $3,000 in the first 3 months. And then it's 45,000 scene points after you spend 20,000 in 6 months, which is pretty reasonable, I think, for a card like this, for a premium card. And then something that, of course, we've been seeing a lot of lately is the month 14 spending. So you earn an additional 25,000 scene points. After, do you have to make a purchase, or do you just have to, oh, it does, you do have to make a purchase in month 14 to get the additional 25,000. So 100,000 scene points, pretty good, welcome offer.
Yeah, I mean, it's $1,000 of value right there just on the Scene Plus points alone. You know, they're super easy to redeem, whether it's for grocery, travel. There's a bunch of uses for them, and they're worth the same regardless of how you use them. So there's not really a wrong way to redeem these points.
Yeah, no, a non-negotiable $1,000 of value from the welcome offer if you're going to keep it open to the 14th month. So 100,000 point offer, $1,000 in value, $250 travel credit, and then the $200 in flyer funds. We're looking at $1,450 for paying a $599 annual fee. And then you also get the benefits associated with this card, being the fact that you get no foreign transaction fees on a Visa, which is a huge perk. And basically, it's not basically, I think it is the only Visa card in Canada that offers no foreign transaction fees, unless I'm forgetting what the Home Trust, is it a Visa or is it a MasterCard for the Home Trust?
The Home Trust is a Visa.
It always comes back up in the conversation. It's like always over my shoulder, just waiting for the opportunity, you know?
Yes, the bank that nobody has heard of until the points and miles community got their hands on the Home Trust Visa, no foreign transaction fees.
So I did want to mention, I know you alluded to it, Danny, where it does have that $20,000 spend required on that. And I think Jeff put it good, where it's, you know, it's about $3,000, little more than $3,000 a month if you do break it out. But there's no shortage of ways to meet that in Canada. You know, I'll be the first to say, if you haven't looked into Chexi, it's a phenomenal service for paying rent, daycare, other bills with your credit card. There is, of course, a fee associated with it, so you'll have to do some quick maths to make sure it's worth it. But there's absolutely avenues out there. Just, you know, look and talk to people, and you never know what you'll find out.
But that's not the only offer that Scotiabank is out with. They also have a new offer on their Scotiabank Amex Gold Card, which is still pretty good at 45,000 points. However, it's not a first-year annual fee. So, or a first-year annual free, excuse me. You still have to pay a fee in your first year. So, well, that's a bit of a downgrade. 45,000 scene points is $450. And I think Amex offers is an underrated portion of the Scotiabank Amex portfolio, because unlike Amex offers with American Express Canada issued cards, Amex offers on the Scotiabank cards are a lot wider. Like, there's a lot more of them, and they show up on every card. So if you have any authorized users and you have an Amex offer that you really enjoy using, you can have that same Amex offer on your authorized user card. So there's potential for a lot of value to be had from those Amex offers as well. Okay. Moving on to our next point of news, which is another reminder about the Frugal Flyer Edmonton Meetup. Now, I'm actually not going to be there, so I'll let Josh take this away and give you all the details, because you're going to be seeing his friendly face at that meetup.
Absolutely. So happy to be hosting another event in Edmonton, which is, you know, where Reed, Kiernan, and myself reside. So on Saturday, February 7th, we're hosting an event off of White Avenue, which is the main street for going out in Edmonton. We have a nice venue booked called Epic Market, which is kind of like a food hall / you know, bar. Great place to kind of chat with other miles and points people. There is a bit of a ticket cost for this event, so tickets are still available as of the time of the episode being posted, but they are selling pretty quick. Tickets are $15, and it does include a drink voucher, which is good for your first drink of the evening. So if you've attended before, we'd love to see you again. If you haven't attended, we'd love to see you out. It's always a pleasure to see familiar faces, but also to meet new people. And there's always a ton of learning and connecting and, you know, building those relationships going on. So if you find yourself in Edmonton, whether you live here or you'll be in town that night, we'd love to see you out.
Well, and I think it's important, even if you're not from Edmonton, to take a look at some of the other points and miles meetups or events that take place, and just look at the value in comparison. So well, it would probably cost you at least $300 to fly round trip from most places in Canada to Edmonton. Actually, I don't know if that many people are trying to go to Edmonton on February 7th.
I don't want to be in Edmonton on February 7th. Tell you that much. Yeah.
Exactly. So maybe it's worth taking a look at some cheap airfare, or using my favorite deal, booking Porter Airlines with your Alaska miles and seeing if you can make your way to Edmonton, considering with the first drink of the evening being covered up to $20. It's pretty much a free event to attend, and you're going to get a lot more knowledge in terms of value. If you've never been to a Points and Miles event before, and you're considering some of the other options that are out there, this could be one where you have a lower barrier to entry, even if you have to travel in for the event. That's enough about shilling our Frugal Flyer meetups. On to the British Airways devaluation. Devaluations are never a good thing. However, I think this one could have been a lot worse. Jeff, have you had a chance to see these changes? Give us a little bit of the news. When did this devaluation happen, and what are the results?
Yeah, so this happened, I'm going to say, a few weeks ago, or at least British Airways initially announce this? I don't believe it was a no-notice devaluation. I believe
they did announce.
Pre-announced.
Yeah,
right,
they did say we're doing
which
this.
is very rare.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they announced that some award prices are going to be going up, but they never really actually specified how many or by how much. But now that the devaluation has happened, we do have a better idea of what award pricing looks like. Seems like we're seeing about an average of a 10% increase in points cost across both economy and business class cabins. So, and we also saw a bit of an increase in taxes and fees as well, but very, very, very minimal. So that's really nothing to be concerned about it. And also, this kind of only really applies to British Airways flights, Aer Lingus flights, stuff like that. For example, like our favorite Qatar Airways Q suites, unaffected by this change. They're still matching the Qatar Airways pricing of 70,000 Avios points from North America to Doha. So that's still very, very excellent. And honestly, a lot of people really never redeemed for British Airways flights, honestly, through British Airways, because the award pricing was just, or sort of the taxes and fees were just very, very unappealing for a lot of people. Yeah. So, for example, like Aer Lingus prices just went up slightly. It's still a really good price. You're looking at like 15,000 Avios to go from North America to Dublin, which is still a great price. Taxes and fees are reasonable, $200 to $250. And I think business class, I don't know, Danny, did you look up business class? It was 50,000 Avios previously. I don't actually know what it was, what it moved to, but that was an okay deal too.
Yeah, I mean, the good news is that, strangely, Aer Lingus didn't actually change how many Avios it costs, even though they're very close client or very close alliance member and owned by the same company British Airways did. So you can quickly transfer over your Avios from British Airways into Aer Lingus Avios, and you'll still pay the original the sweet spot that has been talked about for years and years in Canadian Points and Miles, which is 13,000 Avios for a one-way flight in economy class. So really interesting to see that even though British Airways increased their award charts, Aer Lingus didn't. So all you have to do is transfer over your Avios. If you're unfamiliar, if that sounds strange, listen to our Avios episode that we recorded in the very early days of the Miles Ahead podcast, and you'll get the scoop on Avios. But it's one of the only award currencies where if you earn them with one airline, you can actually change them into another airline's miles, which is super unique. One thing that I do want to say about that sweet spot is, well, it might not be a great deal all the time because round trips from the East Coast to Dublin are often like $600 or $700, and you're going to pay like $200 in taxes and fees on this. If you don't want to spend money, but you do want to get to far places, this is a great opportunity to do that. And then once you're in Dublin, you've got the world famous Ryanair, which is not luxurious, but they are cheap. And if you're trying to not spend money, you can go to Northern Africa with a direct flight from Dublin. You can also go to Rovaniemi, which is, of course, where you can see the Northern Lights in Finland, or you can even make your way to the Greek islands with a direct flight from Dublin on Ryanair for like under 100 Canadian. So if you're a budget traveler who's slightly into miles and points, I think that's an underrated sweet spot from that regard. Okay, keeping things in the One World family, moving on to American Airlines. They have unfortunately removed points and miles earnings on basic economy tickets. No notice devaluation. American Airlines kind of tried to sweep this under the rug. Not super relevant for Canadians, as of course we don't fly on American Airlines a ton. They do have some routes like from Toronto, and then weirdly there's a Saturday only route from Calgary to LaGuardia, which is super interesting. It's very interesting to see how these airlines decide what markets to enter. But regardless, this is not a podcast about airline revenue systems. This is a podcast about miles and points. So with that being said, I just wanted to bring this up because it could be a dictator of things to come. We've already seen Aeroplan implement a 10% points earnings in the past on basic economy. That's now changed, where all Aeroplan members are going to earn 1 point per dollar. If you're unfamiliar with that change, listen to our episode on the Aeroplan 3.0 new program. It is kind of like listening to tax code, but if you're at all into maximization in terms of points and miles in Canada, it's kind of required listening going forward. So airline industries and airline loyalty is a copycat industry. So hopefully nobody else in the space sees this, that American Airlines can get away with removing earnings on basic economy, and they do the same thing as well. But a unfortunate no-notice devaluation for American Airlines. Hopefully this is a one and done. Now, moving north of the border again, Josh, we have BMO credit card benefit changes, and arguably whether they're better or not kind of depends on where you live, I think. But tell us first what's changing about the BMO credit card benefits.
So in December, BMO pulled all of the Shell fuel discount benefits from their existing line of cards. This just came up suddenly. The partnership no longer exists, so you'll no longer receive that discount. But they didn't just take it away and give nothing. So they added Instacart Plus to all of these cards, as well as a monthly Instacart credit to be used on that platform. Now, the amount depends depending on how premium the card is, but it was nice to see that they gave something back. Clearly, the Shell partnership has moved on, and now it's Instacart is what's hot. Completely fair. They also did add some streaming credits on many of their credit cards. So look into that if you hold an existing BMO credit card. We also saw some Nexus credits get added to a few cards. So, I think I'm kind of the same as Danny. There's some value here, whether it's better or worse to be determined, but I think they're pretty positive changes. And I also think this is the point in the podcast where all the news gets really good from here on out. So we're on the up and up. Overall, normally we see benefits taken away. I'm glad they replaced it with something that is pretty comparable, obviously very different, but comparable, and beefed up a few other cards with some additional credits. It's not bad.
Yeah, I think to me this signals BMO is making a clear effort to market to young people living in cities. I don't know very many of my friends' parents that use Instacart on a regular basis, but many of my friends do that particularly live in cities and don't have the time, or it's a huge hassle to carry groceries around in a city. So interesting to see maybe BMO actually being innovative and trying to change things. If you're listening, BMO, we would love to have earning rewards that are worth more than 1 cent per point. Your rewards are currently worth 0.67 at the maximum value. So if you had a 5X card that earned 5% in equivalent, that would be great. So hopefully we see Instacart, and then we see some better rewards going forward. But Jeff, I'm going to let you break probably the points and miles story of the year in Canada. Please tell us what we are so excited about.
Wow, you're calling the points and mile news of the year in January.
I think
that's
so.
bold.
Yeah. I think this is the Canadian points and miles news of the year. I don't think Amex Canada has done anything this exciting in a very long time. Amex Canada, we love you, but this is an amazing addition to make us love you even more. Jeff, let's not keep the ladies and gentlemen waiting any longer.
Yeah, no, I agree. This is not something we see very often, where our points just all of a sudden magically get 25% better. Almost never happens. So Amex Canada announced, or actually they didn't even announce. They just made the change, and it was just found out by the community that Amex membership rewards now transfer to Flying Blue at a 1-to-1 ratio. Previously, it was one Amex membership reward to 0.75 Flying Blue miles, which made it honestly not very appealing. I don't know about you guys, but I've done a handful of Flying Blue redemptions, and all the points I've accumulated were from U.S. membership awards, which transfer at 1-to-1. Yeah.
Yep.
So now this puts Flying Blue on an equal footing as Air Canada, Aeroplan, and British Airways, Avios, which I think is really, really important, because now we have all three airline alliances that we now have access to at a 1-to-1 transfer ratio for Canadian membership awards. So pretty awesome change by Amex. Obviously, they didn't have to do it because they've seemed to have been doing fine this whole time, but nice of them to do this for us. Flying Blue is a really, really useful program that we've all taken advantage of. I know the three of us at least have, so I'm really excited that this change has come along.
Yeah. Josh, your thoughts?
Monumental. I know it seems silly to say, and if you told the average person about it, they'd be like, what the hell? But it got 25% better. I'm echoing Jeff. Like, this just doesn't happen. If anything, things get 25% worse is typically what we see.
Yeah.
The fact that if you have, of course, there's a plethora of MR earning cards out there, but if you have like the Cobalt, you're now earning 5 times Flying Blue on groceries and dining. That's nuts to me. It's just such good value. And I think it's an underappreciated program by Canadians. And it was for me a few years ago as well, till I really tried to understand it. And I've gotten a ton of value out of it since. So it's nice to not just, I think Jeff put it best with, it's nice that all three alliances are now available. I think that's the biggest win here, right? You're not just shoehorned into, Star Alliance in one world. Having a third option makes it that much easier to find award availability. So I love it.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, Jeff kind of said that Amex Canada didn't really have to do this. In my opinion, I think this was a move on Flying Blue's part. I think Flying Blue wanted this to happen. They're a program that is very aggressive with expanding to banks in the US. As soon as there's a new transferable rewards program, Flying Blue is always there. So I think Flying Blue is trying to have people use their program more. They're trying to grow, and they see the value in that. Hate to be that guy, but this did technically get 33% better with the way that 1 to 0.75 math works. I know you guys can roll your eyes all you want. I can break the news that we got 33% better, not 25% better. But Flying Blue program is great. To get back on topic, we have promo rewards, which we haven't covered before, but I'm pleased to say that we are going to cover. We're going to do a full deep dive on Flying Blue, releasing about 2 weeks after this episode comes out. So you have that to look forward to. Once that episode is released, we're going to link to that episode in this version of the show notes. So you'll be able to go directly to that if you are equally as excited by this news and you want to get into it. Promo rewards, to get back to my original point, and I'm kind of bouncing around here, are basically a 25% discount on a variety of different cities to Europe. So this month, being January, you can book at 18,750 miles in economy. So 18,750 Amex Canada points. You can fly between New York, Houston, Washington, D.C., Miami, Las Vegas, and Atlanta to many, many places in Europe, connecting through Amsterdam or Paris. So that is a huge portion. Now, unfortunately, this one is only in the U.S., but a huge portion of cities. You're going to be able to connect down there on a positioning flight and make yourself an excellent deal to get across the Atlantic. There is like a travel buy date for the promo rewards. Usually it's about 6 months. So travel relatively soon, but sometimes for a deal, if you already have a trip booked and you want to take advantage of this, it's an awesome opportunity. There is also a 45,000 point reward in business class between Montreal and Europe, but you need to be an extra exclusive member. Extra exclusive members, we're going to cover it in the episode that comes out 2 weeks from now. But basically, you pay 379 euros and you get access to the extra exclusive promo rewards. Sounds like a bunch of marketing mumbo jumbo, but it does have some decent benefits. And again, we're going to go over those in more detail because we got a lot of questions to get through on this episode. Before we get to the questions, Josh, we have some more Canadian membership awards news. Please tell us what the other exciting piece is that we have in this episode.
Absolutely. So they're kind of rare transfer bonuses with Canadian MR, but we do see them from time to time. And there is another one that's running currently for our MR to Marriott Bonvoy. It is available until January 31st, and it is a 30% bonus. So effectively, what your ratio turns into is you can convert one Canadian MR to 1.156 with the bonus. So essentially 1,000 MR is 1,560 Bonvoy points. It's a pretty good sizable jump. Again, I don't think we tend to transfer to Bonvoy. I have the odd time from MR if I've needed a top up, but it's not a program that I really chase aggressively, especially as things get more expensive for redemptions. But I still think it's great to see. There's always, I have one friend who is a Bonvoy loyalist and will probably take advantage of this. That's just what he does. That's his thing, right? He doesn't need a bunch of airline miles, so to each their own, but it's good to see. I'm glad they offer stuff like this. We often don't get as many good transfer bonuses in Canada compared to the States, so it's nice to see something come across our way.
Yeah, no, for sure. One little hack that I wanted to mention is people often forget that Marriott Bonvoy partners with a bunch of airlines and you can send your Bonvoy points to the airline. Usually a bad deal, but in this case, with all of the transfer bonuses and United has a special relationship with Marriott Bonvoy, don't want to get too mathy in an audio format, but effectively you get a 1 to 0.78 transfer ratio from American Express Canada to United Airlines. And you might say, well, why would I care about United Airlines? They do have some good sweet spots. Like they're good for intra-Europe short hauls with a lot less taxes and fees. Like I've seen $100 less taxes and fees with a United Star Alliance award within Europe in comparison to a Aeroplan Star Alliance award. And then on top of that, you're going to pay 6,000 miles versus 7,500 miles with Aeroplan. The example that I most recently used this for was flying Aegean Airlines from Athens to the Greek islands. It saved me like $400 Canadian round trip to book with, for two people, to book with United Miles versus Aeroplan, and not to mention the miles themselves, just because the taxes and fees were so low. And Aegean makes a weird amount of their flights available, even when cash prices are high. So nice little sweet spot that you now have until January 31st. If you do think you're going to be flying around Europe, 1 to 0.78, basically better than transferring Amex Canada to Delta. So pretty nice opportunity there. On to our questions. We have many, many questions. And Stephen on the podcast forum sent this in just a couple days before recording. He recently saw that Amex Canada now transfers 1-to-1 to Air France KLM Flying Blue. He wants us to do a deep dive on the program. Good news.
It's happening,
Stephen.
It's happening.
It's happening.
Next episode, keep an eye out.
Coming out in 2 weeks. Yep. Yes, you have the exact same brain as the Frugal Flyer podcast team. So very excited for that. Keith, also from the podcast forum, he is talking about Edmonton's Best Hotels program. He's used a couple of times in the past at Marriott branded hotels to get some cheap elite nights. However, unfortunately, no more Marriott branded hotels are listed on the Edmonton's Best Hotels program. Just wondering if you have any info. Are we going to get any Marriott properties back? I'll refer to our resident Edmontonian to respond to Keith.
Absolutely. Anyone who lives in Edmonton knows about this promo. Such an easy way to earn elite nights. I also had heard that they were gone, and I know someone who did message them And so what Best Edmonton Hotels said was that they're not currently available due to a system update, again, super ambiguous, on Marriott's side. So they did say it's a temporary issue. They did say they will return, but there's no timeline. Now, it's been like 2 months since they messaged. So I'm a little skeptical that this will be resolved, but I want it to be resolved because it's such an easy way to earn elite nights. So hopefully we get them back in the next little while, especially if there's going to be another Q1, Q2 double elite qualifying nights promo. But as it stands right now, they're definitely not still there. There's no timeline. They've identified it as an issue, but you know, there's not really a lot of info. So keep an eye out, check every so often would be my advice.
Excellent advice, Josh. Just like a lot of things in this hobby, we've just got to keep our eye on things. And we found out via Reddit that the Air France KLM transfer ratio was 1-to-1.
Yeah, you would think that'd be something they'd want to like communicate, you know, to their partners, to the public, and you know, whatever. Sometimes the best stuff is on Reddit. What can you do?
A random Redditor noticed that the ratio had changed and posted it, and it was the same for everybody. And that's how we found out about the points and miles news in Canada. But moving on to Christian. Christian actually left us a comment on Spotify, which is an excellent way to get in touch with us. He says that he is moving from Denver to Ontario soon, and he currently has the Chase Sapphire Reserve, an excellent card. He's been doing a ton of research, wants to take advantage of the Canadian card market, but he doesn't think anything compares to the CSR. He wants lounge access with Maple Leaf Lounges, and he also wants a Prestige Priority Pass membership. He wants our opinion on if he should keep the Sapphire Reserve or get a Canadian equivalent. Jeff, I know what your answer is going to be. Are you at all surprised that he can't find a similar card to the CSR in Canada?
Yeah, this is actually something that I've been thinking about for a while, because what do we have in Canada? We have a lot of Maple Leaf Lounges, and we have a lot of Priority Pass lounges. And the more you think about it, the more compelling the Sapphire Reserve becomes, because it gives unlimited access to all of those.
Yeah.
Which I think is pretty incredible when you think about it. So he's asking if there's an equivalent, and the answer is no. I do not believe there is an equivalent. If you're comparing it to Canada's version of a premium credit card, you would be talking about the Amex Platinum card. And given that that card is going to be nerfed come 2027, down to 6 lounge visits for Priority Pass, and because although it does give unlimited Centurion Lounge access, there are no Centurion Lounges in Canada. So I think he should keep the Chase Sapphire Reserve and just take advantage of whatever other cards he can as a Canadian. But there's nothing that's comparable, I think. So I would keep that card.
Yeah. Christian, I would say keep an active U.S. address, or hopefully you've made at least one friend in Colorado that you can send your mail to. Keep applying for U.S. cards, keep going in that market, and then add some of the stuff that's unique in Canada. Like I would go after right away the 2 Bonvoy cards. Amex Canada can be a little bit difficult to get approved with, but if you have an Amex U.S. card, do a global transfer, you're legitimately transferring to a new country, so you'll be able to get that fairly easily. Grab the business version of that, and those are kind of the 2 things that I would say are low-hanging fruit with the free night certificates for under 200 Canadian dollars. Grab those 2 first, but keep spending on your cards that don't have a foreign transaction fee, and probably grab the Cobalt. I'd say that's got to be one that you got to snag right away.
Yep.
All right. Another question from Mike via the podcast forum. He thinks he was listening to the most recent podcast episodes where we mentioned we were doing a deep dive on premium cards. He wants to know how we compare the WestJet card and spending for platinum status up to the new Aeroplan program and working our way up to status with spending on the credit cards there. He spends quite a bit of money through all of his businesses, and he only flies once or twice a year. He's looking mostly for a way to get flights through points, but he doesn't know if having elite status would actually be a great benefit in this situation. If it would be, should he go for WestJet elite status via spending, or should he go for Aeroplan status via spending? My 2 cents on this is that if you're only flying once or twice a year with the family, you don't need status, my friend. And especially if you want to fly in premium cabins, status will make no difference to you. You should probably be focusing your spending on new card bonuses, but that can get kind of annoying after a while signing up for new cards constantly. If you're going to just choose one and keep it simple, probably spend on an Amex branded card. And if you can't spend at a merchant that takes Amex, or if the merchant you're trying to spend at doesn't take Amex, spend on a premium Aeroplan card. You'll get some 25K status. You're going to earn at 1.25 Aeroplan points per dollar. It complements the Amex points you're already going to earn. And that's probably the best way forward. But curious to get both of your takes on this, guys.
Yeah. I don't personally think WestJet status is worth it. I think it's kind of a meager program. I also don't think the amount of spend that's required to do the status lift all the way to platinum is astronomical. I think it's like $250,000 or something. It's crazy high. I'm kind of the same as Danny. I think new card bonuses are great. If you're not a super frequent flyer, like I'm not. I do a handful of trips a year. Like I don't even worry about status. I just wouldn't get that much value, so I wouldn't stress about that. I like Danny's approach of, earning some membership rewards, because you can also redeem those points through their fixed travel program, which is a pretty good value for what it's worth if you don't want to deal with transferring and finding award availability, especially if you're flying 4 or 5 people, depending on what you're looking to do. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's better to maybe spread it out. And I would, I know elite status can be attractive, because it does come with some good benefits, but if you're not flying all that much, it can kind of be lost on you.
Yeah. And you know what? Just one thing I'm thinking about here, if you're just getting into points and miles and you're considering WestJet, you do get, 1.5 WestJet dollars or 1.5 WestJet points for every dollar you spend on their World Elite MasterCard. I think that's correct, right, guys? Yep. You'd probably be better off with just a 1% cashback card in comparison, in terms of the return you're going to get. Like, cash is literally king, and you're a very fixed currency. And with WestJet dollars now being able to be redeemed for anything, you could be getting less than 1 cent per WestJet point. Yep. So definitely, if you're currently collecting cash back and you're considering WestJet, just keep it cash back. The other benefit of spending on an Aeroplan card, with the new status program, you get a select benefit at 20K SQCs, and one of those select benefits could be a priority reward. So that is a super valuable carrot to potentially chase after for spending on the Aeroplan cards. You have to have 25K status when you hit 20K SQC, but that is an excellent reason to spend on Aeroplan cards if you have big spend versus a WestJet card. All right, our final question of this episode, Ken from the podcast forum. He has recently applied for the Chase Aeroplan card using his ITIN. After going through a whole bunch of hoops, Chase basically said they were not able to approve me for the card. They said the image quality was no good, and then later on the customer service representative didn't want to provide a reason for a rejection, but the ID verification was not the reason. He's kind of at his wit's end. He's asking, what is the Chase reconsideration process nowadays? He's seen some data points online that they no longer have a dedicated recon team. He only has 13 months of U.S. credit history with a few different Amex cards, and his credit score is well above 700 with all 3 credit bureaus. So what do you guys think is going on with trying to get approved for your first Chase card after going through and getting Amex cards in the U.S.?
I defer to our expert, Jeff, on Chase cards for this one.
Yeah, so getting approved for your first Chase card to begin with, there's always going to be some difficulty involved there. So that's kind of the first thing you have to get around. And I found that Chase, sometimes when you use an ITIN, will identify the ITIN as an invalid or errored tax ID just because they're not used to seeing it, or their agents aren't used to seeing that type of number. For whatever reason, it appears in their system differently than an SSN. So sometimes calling them and telling them that you're using an ITIN will fix it. It's hard to know exactly without knowing the reason why you're being denied by Chase. So, and their insistence on using snail mail for all correspondence during application processes is really, really frustrating, especially if you're in Canada and you can't get your mail that easily or quickly. So it could just likely be that your history isn't long enough. And if you feel that you've spent enough time trying to get it pushed through and you can't, maybe just let this one die and try again in 3 months. I did see some posts on Reddit suggesting that Chase reconsideration is not what it once was. In terms of frontline agents will just simply tell you that you're denied and they won't even forward you to a reconsideration agent. So that's also going to, cause some issues because Chase reconsideration is usually pretty easy to reach prior to this. But I will just quickly add a data point. My brother applied for a Chase card last week and he had to call in and he had a denial reversed. So still possible to do. I guess each situation is unique. I would maybe try 1 or 2 more phone calls. And if you don't feel like you're getting anywhere, the best path might just be to let the application die and try again in a few months.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to seem like you're pushing things too hard or trying to push something through that they're clearly not happy with. My very first Chase application came after 18 months of having an Amex US card. I only had one Amex US card when I applied for my first Chase card, for whatever that's worth, maybe nothing, but that was my situation. And they did not believe that I was a real person. They originally approved me and then canceled my card. I had to go in branch, get it uncanceled, show them that I was a real person. It was a whole hullabaloo. Luckily, I was actually living in the US at the time and still am, but that made things a lot easier. It's tough to justify a trip to the US to get approved for a credit card, but yeah, you've got to make your own decisions on whether that's worth it or not. I find the branch folks are a lot easier to deal with than the phone agents. So another data point, something to keep in mind. But that will do it for this episode of Miles Ahead. We thank you very much for listening to our Points and Miles news recap at the beginning of January. If you enjoyed listening to this episode, please leave us a review wherever you find your podcast episodes. All of the feedback helps us tremendously, and the reviews in particular are extra exciting. Again, thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing you on the next one. Bye, everybody.